everyone. My name is Elizabeth Manns, and I'd like to welcome you to the April 4th Coalition Show. This is the July 7th edition of the show, and our mission statement is: we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. We support all the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but as is our custom, we put the emphasis on Article 23. And Dick, as we're a little late, do you want 1 and 2?
Yes. Number 1, everyone has the right to work, the free choice of employment, the just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment. Number 2, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number 3, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, which is any form of compensation, ensuring for himself or herself and his or her family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. Michael, number 4.
All right. Number 4, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of his or her interests.
And as is our custom, we would like to thank the program director of WMNB for airing the audio portions of our shows on Friday at 6 p.m. and whenever else they can fit it into the schedule, and to the fabulous staff here at NBCTC, Matthew Tucker, Nicole A. Brown, and Joanne Hurlber for their invaluable assistance, or without them we could not produce the show.
Right.
And I know I went patriotic today, red, white, and blue, and
Yeah.
recognition of the past holiday. Even though I don't agree with what our president is doing, I still support America in all ways.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to start by a little bit of backtracking, looking at a video that was made by Robert Reich almost a year ago, but it
portends.
It talks about, the question is Donald Trump a fascist? And that's the question, I'm beginning to ask myself after this great, big, beautiful bill was passed. So let's review that video.
I want to talk to you about the F word. No, not that F word. I'm talking about fascism. Is Donald Trump really a fascist, as some would say? Or is the word authoritarian sufficient? The term fascism is often used loosely, but you can generally identify fascists by their hate of the other, vengeful nationalism, and repression of dissent. To fight these ideas, we need to be aware of what they are and how they fit together. Let's examine the 5 elements that define fascism and what makes it distinct from and more dangerous than authoritarianism. First, the rejection of democracy in favor of a strongman. Authoritarians believe strong leaders are needed to maintain stability, so they empower strongmen, dictators, or absolute monarchs to maintain social order through the use of force. But fascists view strong leaders as the means of discovering what society needs. They regard the leader as the embodiment of society, the voice of the people.
I am your voice. I alone can fix it.
Second, stoking rage against cultural elites. Authoritarian movements cannot succeed without at least some buy-in from establishment elites. While fascist movements often seek to co-opt the establishment, they largely depend on fueling resentment and anger against presumed cultural elites for supposedly displacing regular people. Fascists rile up their followers to seek revenge on the elites.
The out-of-touch media elites, the political elites, but the elites from the elites who led us from one financial and foreign policy disaster to another.
They create mass political parties and demand participation. They encourage violence.
You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. Knock the crap out of him, would you?
And we fight. We fight like hell.
Third, nationalism based on superior race and historic bloodlines. Authoritarians see nationalism as a means of asserting the power of the state. For fascists, the state embodies what is considered a superior group based on race, religion, and historic bloodlines. To fascists, the state is a means of asserting that superiority.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you.
Fascists worry about disloyalty and replacement by groups that don't share the same race or bloodlines.
And I think any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty.
Fascists encourage their followers to scapegoat, expel, and sometimes even kill such others. Fourth, extolling brute strength and heroic warriors. The goal of authoritarianism is to gain and maintain state power at any cost. For authoritarians, strength comes in the form of large standing armies that can enforce their rule. They seek power to wield power. Fascists seek state power to achieve their ostensible goal, achieving their vision of society. Fascism accomplishes this by rewarding those who win economically and physically, and denigrating or even exterminating those who lose. Fascism depends on organized bullying, a form of social Darwinism.
Our people are tougher and stronger and meaner and smarter.
For the fascist, war and violence are means of strengthening society by culling the weak and glorifying heroic warriors.
I am your warrior. I am your justice. I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
Fifth and finally, disdain of women and LGBTQ+ people. Authoritarianism imposes hierarchies. It's about order. Fascism's idea of order is organized around a particular hierarchy of male dominance. The fascist heroic warrior is male. Women are relegated to subservient roles. In fascism, anything that challenges the traditional heroic male roles of protector, provider, and controller of the family is considered a threat to the social order. Fascism seeks to eliminate homosexuals, non-binary, transgender, and queer people because they are thought to challenge or weaken the heroic male warrior.
I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth.
These 5 elements of fascism fit together and reinforce each other. Rejection of democracy in favor of a strongman depends on galvanizing popular rage. Popular rage draws on a nationalism based on a supposed superior race or ethnicity. That superior race or ethnicity is justified by a social Darwinist idea of strength and violence, as exemplified by heroic warriors. Strength, violence, and the heroic warrior are centered on male power. These 5 elements find exact expression in Donald Trump. His uniquely American version of fascism is rooted largely in white Christian nationalism. It is the direction that most of the Republican Party is now heading in. It's not enough to call Trump and those promoting his ideas authoritarians, when what they are really advocating is something far worse: fascism.
Well, definitely with the passage of the big beautiful bill, he's accomplishing 3 out of the 4, because he's gutting the medical system, so that's going to impact those that are weak, in his opinion. It's certainly all those bans on abortion were aimed at keeping women down, and I'm sure it's going to continue to keep happening. And I am sure, Everything, and the money going to the top, the economic, is intended also. That's the reward to the rich. So,
It's, you know, I have this book, it's called The Honey and the Hemlock by Eli Sagan. It was given to me a number of years ago by a woman, a friend of mine that lived on my mail route. And it talks about paranoia in ancient Athens and in modern day America. And it talks about the dominating imperative. You have to rule or be ruled. So there has to be someone on top, the strong man's on top. You know, and they can only fix it. Only I can fix it, you know? And
Yeah.
then, you know, anybody else that has any authority that challenges
Right.
that person's authority, whether they be intellectuals or newspaper
Paper.
people that do research or scientists, you know, they must be subjugated, you know? And so we see that, you know, attacks on the universities.
tax on the grant money, all of that. Definitely he's always attacked the media from day one of his political career. Even when he was supposedly a Democrat, he attacked the media.
Right, and then attacking people, like in this book, there's one part here, it talks about the paranoid person. It says, the paranoid is acutely concerned about what goes in and what comes out of the body. Pollution is a constant concern. It becomes necessary, therefore, periodically to purge the body politic of those elements which pollute it. Periodic purges were a necessary activity of the awesome totalitarian movements of the 20th century. The paranoid never believes that even the most extreme measures taken against real and fantasized enemies are sufficient. Catastrophe is always imminent. Paranoid people, David Shapiro writes, live in a readiness for an emergency. They seek to live in a more or less continuous state of total mobilization. This is a logical condition considering the two fundamental principles of the paranoid view, that the world is basically untrustworthy and hostile, and that the only defense is to get into one's power the few basic instruments that control the universe. That leads logically to one of the paranoid's essential modes of action. Offense is the best defense. You know, we are acquainted with psychopathic persons suffering from paranoia who attack someone on the street because that someone was about to attack him. That is a problem for the police and the psychiatric social worker. You know, it's this, you know, we got to clear, you know, those immigrants are something we have to clear from here.
Oh, yeah, that's
You know,
the paranoid personality.
and it starts
And
out-
then he will move on to the next, which he's
Right.
already starting to
And
do.
what he's done in that big, beautiful bill is he's created this system we call ICE, is a police force, not the state police that's regulated by the state and the state politicians, not the local law
Law
enforcement
enforcement.
that's regulated by our local government. No, he's setting up a state, like the Justice Department had the FBI, but that was separate. It was supposed to be a separate
Separate
agency.
agency.
But this ICE is only answerable to Trump. So
Right.
last week, we covered a lot about Mandami's win in New York. And immediately Trump says, well, he's a communist, and we're going to, you know, we'll revoke his citizenship because
Because
he's
he's
a
not
naturalized
American,
citizen.
naturalized. Right, that's why
We're
he's
going to keep
thinking
an
of it.
eye on him. Anybody that's a threat
Threat
to
to
him,
him.
he's going to get rid of. So this amount of money that they're putting in to ICE is larger than the military budget of Brazil. It's larger than the budget of the FBI. And a lot of it goes to private prisons. And what they're doing is they're setting up almost like concentration camps.
They are going to be
And they're going to
concentration
keep
camps.
them full. They're not going to provide Congress oversight to
Nope.
them. It's just a terrible
And they're not
thing.
going to provide care or anything else that goes in there.
Well, we have another video on monopolies that was done by Robert Reich. And let's, instead of going, let's watch that.
Want to watch Robert?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he has, yeah. We had a little technical difficulty. We were going to show you a video on how monopolies work, but somehow we got the language mixed up on the video that we were showing. And unless you spoke German, I believe you wouldn't have understood.
You wouldn't have
So
gotten it.
we're going to move to the next. We were talking about Trump's big, beautiful bill, which the Senate caved on. The Senate and the House caved on. ballooning the debt, transporting money from the poor to the rich. You know, but let's look at how
Got into
Trump's
social
bill
safety net.
is being looked at.
The other thing that is in this law, I mean, soon to be law, is something that got a lot less attention than those other pieces, although plenty of people were still talking about it. And that's that for all the cuts that it makes to the social welfare system in the United States, and I only gave you a handful of them, it does in fact increase funding for deportation, detention facilities for migrants, and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, by $170.7 billion. What that money does is it makes ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, those agents who have their faces covered and are rounding up people off the streets, the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in the United States in history. It has more money at its disposal over the next 4 years than the budgets of the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Agency, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, or ATF, the U.S. Marshals, and the Bureau of Prisons combined. That money is designed to give about $51.6 billion to build a wall on the border. That's more than 3 times what Trump spent in his first term on the wall. It provides $45 billion for detention facilities for ICE. And that's an increase of about 265% in ICE's annual detention budget. And it provides about $30 billion for ICE enforcement. That's a threefold increase in ICE's annual budget, and will allow ICE to hire about 19,000 more agents. As you know, in the last week in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican, of course, has opened a detention facility for migrants in the Everglades for between 3,000 and 5,000 migrants there in the Everglades. And the facilities are tents with cages in them that are susceptible to rain and heat, of course, to flooding and heat. And Trump has said that they will build many more of those across the country, and that he is interested not only in deporting or imprisoning what he calls criminals, although about 8% of the undocumented migrants that ICE is picking up are actually have actually been convicted of a crime. The rest of them have not, and so it's a little hard to see this hellscape that Trump keeps describing. But Trump is also saying that he wants to get rid of what he calls the homegrowns, that is, people in the United States citizens who he claims are criminals. And it is worth remembering, of course, that he has defined people who worked in his last administration as people who could be traitors, could be charged with treason because they spoke out against him. So I think you really have to look at this measure that is about to be signed into law and recognize that what it does is it creates a police force that is answers only to the executive branch. And I won't say to Trump here, because I actually don't think he's calling the shots on immigration. I think that's Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, and to some degree, Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, that and the advisor that Trump has, who has no, by the way, political power. He's simply an advisor. That's Holman, that they call the border czar, but really all he is an advisor. I think they're the ones really calling the shots on this. But this is going to be a huge police force designed to round up Americans and put them in detention camps. And I just here quickly wanted to make sure you understand what a concentration camp is. It is literally a place where people are concentrated. I can tell you the history of them, which is actually quite interesting and has a lot to do with American history, but where people are concentrated without due process of law. They tend to be either members of persecuted minorities or political prisoners. and they are deliberately imprisoned in a very small area without adequate facilities to support them. So, and it's worth thinking of that in light of the fact as well that we have now, I was of 2 days ago, I think, I lose track of time. The paperwork from Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was rendered, not deported, because he didn't, well, in his case, actually was from El Salvador, but he was rendered to prison in El Salvador against the wishes and against the orders of the US courts. And he was tortured there. He has written, you can find it online if you're interested. He wrote about the beatings and the sleep deprivation and, the things that he endured at Sikot prison. And in fact, he is currently, at his own request, being held in prison out of concern that the US government will render him back there if he is out of federal prison, which is just a crazy thing, that somebody is preferring to be in prison than face the US government. All of that is the background to this bill.
It's pretty
grim and
And
definitely
that's
coming.
Heather Cox Richardson, who's a noted historian.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see other videos that she does on YouTube.
Right, and the term homegrown, because I know he already wants to eliminate, he's trying to get the right to revoke citizenship from naturalized citizens. Those are the ones who came here legally and went through the whole process.
Right.
And were of becoming in, to now say they are not U.S. citizens.
Well, anyone that's a threat to him, if you're a political opposition.
Or
Look
a
what they did
convenient
to the
scapegoat.
senator that just went to ask Kristi Noem, the head of Homeland Security,
Right,
some questions. He was handcuffed.
correct.
Thrown on
That's
the
the gentleman
floor,
from
handcuffed.
California.
Yeah, the senator from California, when he was asking about ICE being in Los Angeles. And she was ranting and raving that she was saving Los Angeles from communists and socialists and
Oh, really? I thought ICE was there for immigration.
liberating
Yeah,
Los Angeles from democratically elected officials
Chills.
in arresting a senator. And his words were, my father was a cook when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and imagine they're doing this to a United States senator. And they acted like they said he didn't identify himself. Well, he was in a federal building.
Right.
In order to get into the federal building, he had federal ID on him. They knew he was there.
here.
They knew he was in the room. It was all staged, just a way of intimidating us.
right, it was a target to intimidate the other party and us.
Yeah.
And government to try to suppress, because that's what they do. And, there is no history of parallel for this in the United States, and our reaction time is not fast enough to slow it
Right.
at
The
this
courts-
point. He's just going to bowl through. If we're waiting for the courts to save us, forget it. The Supreme Court has already shown they're going, for the most part, they're going to back Donald Trump.
Well, if you watch other videos by Heather Cox Richardson, she was talking about, like, we just passed the 1-year anniversary when the Supreme Court slowed down the whole system. Trump was under many federal indictments,
Indictments.
one for taking documents illegally. He was also for what happened in Washington.
At
with-
January
on
6th.
January 6th. But they
Slowed it.
slowed it right down, waited till the last day of their court hearing, and then they came out with this
Immunity. Pseudo
saying that
immunity.
the president is immune
Yep,
to anything he does in office. He's immune from prosecution
Prosecution.
as long as he's doing
Doing
his
it.
job.
and he's doing it through the levers of the government
Right.
power.
Setting up.
He can't take a gun and shoot you, but he can pretty much do anything. But he can tell somebody else to shoot you,
Yeah.
as long as they're a lever within the government. That's what I understood
Yeah.
that decision to be. And the most recent one about not letting courts be able to do nationwide injunctions except for them, the Supreme Court,
Yeah,
I believe.
that's their power. They're the
That's
only
their,
ones.
they're the only ones who can do nationwide injunctions, but yet he can write an executive order that affects the whole entire country. So you can tell their loyalty is in that direction. It's not, they're gonna prop him up and try to preserve their power. And God help them, because eventually he's gonna turn on them.
What we had celebrated the 4th of July. And the reason why we celebrate the 4th of July, that was the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And what they were rejecting was they were rejecting a king. That were making them quarter armies that were suppressing them, and not having representation.
And now look out, United States. We are looking at it again. Except this time it's homegrown. It's not somebody from across the ocean. It's homegrown.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. So we have to stand together, and we have to stand tall. And I just, I was wondering if we could show one more video. I know that we're running down in time, but
But we're editing out a video,
yeah,
so
there's
we
one
should
here
be
that
time.
we might go over a little bit over a half hour, but it's like the 10 tactics of a fascist regime. I think I'd like to show that video if we can. If we could show that video on the 10.
Fascism is a cult of the leader who promises national restoration in the face of supposed humiliation by immigrants, leftists, liberals, minorities, homosexuals, women, in the face of what the fascist leader says is a takeover of the country's media, cultural institutions, schools by these forces. And that's why you need a really macho, powerful, violent response. The fascist leader says he will solve the problem. Fascism is right-wing by nature. It's based on ultranationalism. However, you can have ultranationalist movements that are ultranationalist movements of minority groups. There is left-wing authoritarianism. There are bad things on the left. Stalin killed many, many people. Mao killed many, many people. These are terrible figures, but not all terrible things are fascist. Fascism is a very particular ideological structure. When thinking about fascism, you can't think about these individual elements in isolation. They come as a bundle. My name is Jason Stanley. I'm the Jacob Urowski Professor of Philosophy at Yale University and the author of 5 books, most recently, How Fascism Works: The Politics of Us and Them. We forget that many fascist regimes started off as democratic political parties. We forget that Hitler, the Nazi Party, ran in an election. Fascist parties start as fascist social and political movements before they come to power. So it's important to see that these tactics occur even in societies that do not have a fascist regime. All nationalism involves a mythic past. So you can say, look, we're Polish people, people who spoke Polish and were sheep herders, and another bunch of Polish people who were fishermen. You can talk about how things were wonderful when we were all Polish together. That's a fine mythic past. But then there's the fascist mythic past. In the past, we were great. Wherein did our greatness consist? In our military. And in the past, the dominant racial group ruled over others. And then the fascist leader says, that has been taken from you by the leftists and communists. They want to weaken our military. They want to weaken our greatness. Propaganda is ubiquitous, and everyone uses propaganda. In political propaganda, your main message is something other than the information you're conveying. Fascist propaganda is a very particular structure. It's based around a friend-enemy distinction. The political opponent, they are a merciless threat to your very existence and your traditions. They are the other. When they are in charge, it subverts the nation. So the structure, fascist propaganda, is based on the idea that the other are fundamentally opposed to the nation. As Hitler says in Mein Kampf, science is only useful insofar as it strengthens the nation. Fascism is a cult of the leader. It involves the leader setting the rules about what's true and false. So any kind of expertise, reality, all of that is a challenge to the authority of the leader. If science would help him, then he can say, okay, I'll use it. Institutions that teach multiple perspectives on history in all its complexity are always a threat to the fascist leader. The center of democracy is truth. You're not free if you've been lied to. Nobody thinks the people of North Korea are free. The people of North Korea will vote for dear leader every time because they've been lied to. It's not a free vote because they don't have access to the truth. Equality similarly requires truth, because equality in democracy doesn't mean we all have the same amount of money. It doesn't mean we all have the same car. It means political equality, that each of our voices matters the same. And political equality means speaking truth to power. If someone really powerful is humiliated when they're caught lying, that's the core of political equality. So if you're gonna rip the heart out of democracy, you get people used to lies. Here's a fact about humans. We all pretty much suck to the same degree. One group of us is not better than another group of us. Hierarchy is central here because it's the big lie at the center of things. What is racism but one big lie? Racism is the lie that one group is better than another. You're told this religion is better, this race is better, this gender is better. It's really a moral claim, has more moral worth. And then once you have hierarchy set up, you can make people very nervous and frightened about losing their position on that hierarchy. Hierarchy goes right into victimhood, because once you convince people that they are justifiably higher on the hierarchy, then you can tell them that they're victims of equality. German Christians are victims of Jews. White Americans are victims of Black American equality. Men are victims of feminism. Once you convince people that they should be better, that they have earned a position on the hierarchy over others, then you can tell them that equality is actually victimhood. Loyalty to the dominant group means law-abidingness, and the minority group is by its nature not law-abiding. Law and order in fascist politics means the members of the minority group who accept their subservient role, they're law-abiding, and the members of the dominant group, by their very nature, are law-abiding. By definition, the leader can't violate law and order. So law and order doesn't mean justice. Law and order doesn't mean equality. Law and order structures who's legitimate and who's not. Everywhere around the world, no matter what the situation is, in very different socioeconomic conditions, the fascist leader comes and tells you, your women and children are under threat. You need a strong man to protect your families. They make conservatives hysterically afraid of transgender rights or homosexuality, other ways of living. These are not people trying to live their own lives. They're trying to destroy your life, and they're coming after your children. What the fascist politician does is they take conservatives who aren't fascist at all, and they say, look, I know you might not like my ways. You might think I'm a womanizer. You might think I'm violent in my rhetoric, but you need someone like me now. You need someone like me because homosexuality, it isn't just trying for equality. It's coming after your family. Fascist movements typically, though not invariably, rest on an urban-rural divide. The cities are where there's decadence, where the elites congregate, where there's immigrants, there's criminality, there's Sodom and Gomorrah. In the city, there's not real work. The pure, hardworking, real members of the nation live in the rural areas where they work hard with their hands. When our politicians talk about inner city voters or urban voters, we all know what they mean. Arbeit macht frei, work shall make you free. This was written on the gates of Auschwitz. The idea is that the minority group, they're lazy and they need to be made to work. Free labor. The minority group and the leftists, they're lazy by their nature, and it gives them a work ethic. Labor unions are run by communists who are trying to make things easier. Hard work is a virtue. In liberal democracy, we don't value people by how hard they work. What would happen to disabled people who can't work? They would then have no value. It's why the Nazis had the T4 program to murder the disabled, because the disabled were lebensunwertiges Leben, life unworthy of life, because to be valued was to be capable of hard work. Each of these individual elements is not in and of itself fascist, but you have to worry when they're all grouped together. When honest conservatives are lured into fascism by people who tell them, look, it's an existential fight. I know you don't accept everything we do, you don't accept every doctrine, but your family is under threat. Your family is at risk. So without us, you're in peril. Those moments are the times when we need to worry about fascism.
Get smarter faster with new videos every week from the world's biggest thinkers. And to learn even more from the world's biggest thinkers, get Big Think Plus for your business.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I suspect we have to wrap up the
Yes.
show. So, Michael, power to the people time.
Power to the people.
And remember, poverty is the enemy.
Mistakes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud. War's always been the bosses' way, sir. The Union forever defending our rights. Down with the black leather workers unite. With our brothers and our sisters in many far off lands, there is power.